Number 9. Ashley Judd. Ashley Judd has carved out a comfortable living as a high-profile actress, but in her spare time, she's a passionate activist who's eager to trade the glitz and glam of Hollywood for a much more modest existence as she works to make the world a better place. Last year, the starlet traveled to the Democratic Republic of Congo to do some conservation work in the remote bonobo peace forest, which is home to an endangered primate called the bonobo. Things took an unexpected turn for Ashley, though, when she tripped over a fallen tree and broke her leg. She laid on the forest floor for 5 hours while awaiting rescue, and that was just the beginning of what turned out to be a harrowing 55-hour journey to safety. Once help arrived, her Congolese friend reset her leg bone without anesthesia, causing her to go into shock and lose consciousness from the excruciating pain. A group of acquaintances then carried Judd back to their camp on a hammock. From there, she was transported to the city of Jolu on a motorcycle. Then she took a helicopter to the capital city of Kinshasa. Judd was then flown to a hospital in South Africa, where she received treatment in an intensive care unit. The altruistic actress posted a video on social media expressing her gratitude towards those who helped her access services that most locals themselves cannot afford. 6 months after the accident, the media reported that she was walking again. Number 8. A frozen nightmare. Located among the scenic slopes of a volcano in Russia's remote Kamchatka Peninsula, Vilyachinsky waterfall attracts visitors year-round. It's fed by the pristine waters of a nearby melting glacier. During the winter, the 130-foot, 40 meters cascade of water freezes into a collection of massive icicles. It's an absolutely beautiful sight, but things can quickly get ugly if you get too close to it, as one group of tourists recently learned. During a visit to the site earlier this year, a group of 7 visitors and their guide became perilously trapped in ice after massive icicles broke off and fell from the frozen waterfall. At least one person was killed. Several were pulled back from the scene by quick-thinking bystanders, including a gravely wounded child. 4 people were left trapped as they awaited rescue. The government dispatched a helicopter to the scene, along with a team of more than 40 medics, investigators, and rescuers. At the time of reporting, 2 adults and a seriously injured child had been flown to the hospital. Emergency responders worked tirelessly to dig the remaining stranded tourists out from beneath the ice. An investigation into the cause of the catastrophic collapse is ongoing. Number 7. White Island Eruption. Located off New Zealand's North Island in the Bay of Plenty, White Island is an active volcano and a popular tourist attraction. Naturally, this kind of tourism comes with risks. But experts monitor seismic activity in the area so that they can warn the public of any dangers, which is exactly what they did in late 2019 when they raised the volcano's alert level. Unfortunately, tour companies failed to heed the caution and continued to take visitors to White Island. 2 weeks after the alert was issued, the volcano explosively erupted, spewing rock and ash into the air and killing 22 of the 47 people who were on the island at the time. 25 others were seriously injured, with most of them receiving intensive care for severe burns. American newlyweds Lauren Barham and Matthew Urey, who visited during their honeymoon cruise, described seeing nothing but pitch black as they took cover behind a rock in a desperate attempt to avoid the scalding ash and smoke. They suffered disfiguring burns and were placed in medically induced comas while they underwent skin grafts and reconstructive surgeries. The Ureys accused the cruise line and tour company of falsely advertising high safety standards and failing to prevent a needless catastrophe. And they're not the only ones who feel this way. In addition to facing numerous civil lawsuits, several companies and individuals are facing criminal charges for their alleged responsibility in the tragic disaster. Number 6. Bus crash in Bulgaria. A group of more than 50 tourists were riding through Bulgaria on their way back to North Macedonia after a trip to Turkey late last year, when their bus crashed into a barrier and erupted into flames. The accident happened along the Struma motorway near the village of Bosnek in the early morning hours. 7 people who jumped out of the vehicle were injured but survived. 45 others suffocated in the blaze, with their lifeless bodies turning to charcoal by the time the fire was extinguished. They were burned beyond recognition, making it extremely difficult to identify their remains. It was one of the deadliest bus accidents in the country's recent history and the deadliest European crash in the last decade. While the cause of the accident remains unclear, investigators believe that human error was responsible. Bulgarian Prime Minister Stefan Yanev was one of many politicians from different countries who expressed their dismay at the loss of life. He called on the public to learn lessons from the tragic incident to prevent such incidents in the future. Number 5. Gunfire in Paradise. Tourists were enjoying themselves on the pristine sands of Cancun late last year when a group of men pulled up on jet skis and began firing bullets into the air. The beachgoers ran for cover, and thankfully nobody was injured. Rick Labasa, who was visiting from Maine, told NBC5 that in 31 years of vacationing in Cancun, it was the first time he had ever seen an incident like this. He took a surprisingly nonchalant attitude toward the ordeal, explaining that because he had never experienced any issues before, he wasn't overly concerned about it. But not everyone was left unshaken by the random display of gunfire. A pair of tourists from Minnesota named Andy Gyrich and Kerry Arms described the moment they scrambled for safety while watching panicked, screaming and crying guests do the same. Police found and seized the jet skis, but the criminals remained at large. The disturbing incident came amid a noticeable uptick in violence along Mexico's resort-lined Caribbean coast, which had gotten bad enough for the military to be called in to help protect the area. Just weeks earlier, members of a drug gang had stormed the nearby beach at Puerto Morelos and opened fire outside luxury hotels, killing 2 rival gang members. Sadly, these life-threatening encounters are becoming more frequent as cartels fight for control over the area's highly profitable drug trade. But the violence is tarnishing the region's reputation for safety and tranquility, which is what draws so many visitors in the first place. In that sense, the warring drug dealers are risking driving away their own customer base. Number 4. Table Rock Lake Tragedy. The DUKW, or duck boat, is an amphibious vehicle that was used by the US and its allies during World War II and the Korean War. After the boats were taken out of service, they became popular in several cities as a fun way to show tourists around. But there have been numerous fatal accidents involving duck boats, leading many to question whether they should be allowed to operate. The latest tragedy to call the vehicle's safety into question came in 2018 when a duck boat entered Table Rock Lake in the Missouri Ozarks despite a severe thunderstorm warning in the area. By then, winds had already hit 60 miles per hour, 100 kilometers per hour, causing 3-foot, 1-meter waves. Within minutes, the vehicle began to sink as passengers desperately tried to escape. 17 people between the ages of 1 and 70 years old died. Tia Coleman, who lost 9 family members in the accident, told investigators that the crew had told passengers not to wear life jackets because they wouldn't need them. The boat's captain, Kenneth Scott McKee, was accused of failing to properly assess the weather before setting out on the lake. In 2020, a judge dismissed federal charges relating to McKee's alleged role in the tragedy. Determined to achieve justice for the victims, state authorities charged the captain and 2 other employees with 17 counts of involuntary manslaughter last July. The defendants asked a judge to dismiss the charges, arguing a lack of probable cause. They'll find out sometime this year if they'll face a criminal trial. Number 3. Stranded in a snowstorm. Located in northern Pakistan, the mountainside resort town of Murree attracts more tourists than it can handle, often leaving officials with no other choice than to limit how many vehicles are allowed to enter. Shortly into the new year, an estimated 100,000 or more visitors flocked to Murree to catch a glimpse of the winter snowfall, and for some reason, authorities failed to regulate the traffic. The town's streets became unbearably congested as a traffic jam formed on the outskirts. Thousands of cars became stranded, bumper to bumper as a blizzard pounded the region with 5 feet (1.5 meters) of snow in just a few hours and knocked trees into the roads. Many tourists abandoned their vehicles and sought shelter at guest houses and any other warm buildings that would welcome them. Others languished in their cars without much needed food, warmth, and medical care. Emergency workers struggled to reach the scene as they found themselves caught in the traffic jams. The government summoned the military to Murray, but by the time help came, it was too late to save the 22 people who died in the disaster. Most of the individuals who perished froze to death, while some asphyxiated from inhaling toxic exhaust fumes. It took the military 2 days to rescue all the stranded survivors and fully clear the roads. Many survivors were left wondering why authorities allowed the mass stranding to happen. They reported receiving no emergency weather warnings and said that they thought it was perfectly safe to travel to Murray. Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan and the Punjab provincial government ordered an investigation into the ordeal to determine whether there was a failure to issue extreme weather warnings to the public or to regulate traffic coming into Murray. Number 2. Crushed in a canal. When a 50-year-old German law professor named Joachim Vogel and his wife took their 3 kids on a family trip to Venice in 2013, the last thing they expected was to go home with one less family member. But that's unfortunately what happened after a leisurely gondola ride through the city's canals turned deadly. The small boat collided with a water bus, or vaporetto, and Vogel was crushed to death. An investigation found traces of cocaine and marijuana in the gondolier's blood, but his handling of the boat did not appear to be a factor in the accident. Vogel's widow claimed that the larger vessel's operator didn't even notice when it hit the gondola her family was riding in. She questioned why there wasn't an extra pair of eyes at the stern, or why the boat wasn't equipped with more mirrors and cameras for safe maneuvering. It took a tragedy for officials to realize that traffic among the Venetian waterways desperately needed stricter oversight, especially as increased tourism clogged the canals more than ever before. Former city-appointed gondolier representative Aldo Rosso told The Guardian he was surprised that a deadly accident like this hadn't happened sooner. He went on to say that people do whatever they want on the canals. The city's mayor, Giorgio Orsoni, was quick to crack down on the congestion problem. Less than a month after Vogel was killed, Orsoni proposed 26 new measures to prevent more needless tragedies from happening, including drug and alcohol tests for boat handlers, an increased police presence, and a cutback on the number of gondolas that are allowed in the parts of the canal that tend to be the most crowded. Not everyone agreed on who was at fault for congestion in the canals. Gondoliers accused vaporetto operators of traveling at unsafe speeds and failing to pay enough attention to the presence of smaller boats. Vaporetto operators claimed that gondoliers get in the way without any consideration for other vessels. Thankfully, there haven't been any similar fatal crashes since the collision that claimed Vogel's life. Number 1. IGAL TYSZMAN. A honeymoon is supposed to mark the beginning of a lifetime of wedded bliss, but for newlyweds Shia Frankel and IGAL TYSZMAN, the experience proved to be life-shattering. After tying the knot in 2018, the couple took a Caribbean cruise on the allure of the seas. Their fun came to a screeching halt during a ziplining excursion at a port stop in Honduras when Frankel got stuck on the line. Unable to stop on time, her husband crashed into her and died. The tragedy came amid a slew of allegations about unsafe conditions from others who had been injured on the ziplining excursion. They accused Royal Caribbean of failing to disclose that the activity was run by a separate company and falsely advertising top-notch safety standards. Past incidents revealed a troubling history marked by faulty brake systems, poor visibility, and poor communication among staff members between platforms. Several people crashed into platforms, in some cases resulting in gruesome injuries that exposed bone, muscle, and tendon. Other cases involved zipliners slamming into each other, often because there were too many people on the line at the same time. In one incident, 15 people got stuck on the line before employees even realized that something was wrong. Frankel sued Royal Caribbean for over $1 million in damages, but no amount of money could bring her husband back or heal the emotional wounds from his loss. Thanks for watching. Would you rather get stranded in a traffic jam for 3 days straight or endure a 10-hour flight with no bathroom? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.